There is no sound at all.
See you again.
Email after email from me, but I don't think I've seen you in person since I started. Hello.
Actually, you will hug and welcome you. Happy with us.
I think so. Welcome, everybody. I don't know if I've actually met all of you yet. My name is Katie. I'm the new Communications and Marketing Officer here at Patel College, so you've probably gotten emails from me, but haven't met me yet. Hello, nice to meet you. I have the absolute pleasure of introducing an alumna, I think you're an alumna, technically, of Patel College, who I actually did I graduate with. Yeah, we graduated at the same time. So kind of funny how that worked out, that Lauren is back. Did any of you get your resumes and such worked on with Lauren upstairs? Nice, nice. So some of you have already met Lauren. Those of you who have not, you're in for a treat. And I will let you take it away, Lauren.
Okay, thanks. Well, yeah, my name is Lauren Monti, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about some best practices for networking, cover letters, and resumes. So I want to keep it pretty interactive, so if you have questions at any time, just go ahead and ask, and we'll just answer as we go. So I have 2 degrees from USF. I went to the St. Pete campus for a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science and Policy, where I also have a minor in leadership. And then I got my master's here, graduated in 2017 with Building Sustainable Enterprise and Sustainable Energy. And for the past 6.5 years, I've been doing a lot of roles in marketing and proposals So I pretty much build resumes and write cover letters for a living. So I've completed several hundred of them. And the crazy thing is, I'm in this marketing role, and I've never even taken a marketing class. So I want to say that when we're in sustainability, I think that makes us a little bit special because we're all so passionate about what we do and the career choices that we're going to make. So I feel like I'm so passionate about talking about sustainability that that's actually where I found myself most successful. So I think that's a great way to open up this talk today, because it was, I graduated with one idea in mind and then landed a career in another and I'm pretty happy with it. So just some quick networking best practices. Don't be afraid to get out there and meet people. The idea of getting out there and meeting people isn't always necessarily someone who immediately has a job for you. Think about it as a long-term relationship rather than a short-term relationship. So networking and how you network can really make or break the people that you know and that first job that you land. So I would say volunteer for a cause, be known in your community. When I was in my undergrad, everybody knew me as someone who rode my bike everywhere and cared about the environment. One time I was like wrong place, wrong time, and the building where we took classes actually got TP'd. But everybody knew that I was an environmentalist, so I was off the suspect list because I wouldn't waste toilet paper like that. So, being known in your community for a cause that you care about is always something that helps build your personal brand. So make sure that you take time to do that. Also, meeting with professionals. Print your resume and dress professionally. I've actually been thanked by people who take me to lunch or coffee. They thank me for dressing up because so many people just show up wearing street clothes. So if a professional is going to take time out of their day to meet with you and look at your resume, dress up as if you work with them. And then also printing out your resume so that they have something to look at. Otherwise, they're going to be looking at their phone while you're trying to meet with them, and that's really difficult to talk to someone like that. I would also say get involved in your campus, either right now with a club or even with alumni. That's why I'm here, right? This is part of my networking, is knowing all of you, and then all of you are going to enter the job market and be part of my network, right? So staying involved, because we're all going to be the leaders one day. We're all going to get a turn. So again, think of these networking as long-term relationships, not short-term. And then being patient. Something will happen. I met someone, I thought they were going to offer me a job right away. And it was literally the day I moved out of Florida. She emailed me and said, like, hey, if you're still looking for a job, I can hire you. And it's like one of those things where it's almost like, man, if that email had come just a little bit sooner, I probably would still be living in Florida. But be patient, it will happen. And then have a hobby. You never know who you'll meet. Some of you know I like to row. I'm not in this boat, but I like to pretend that I am because that's a really beautiful photo. But I didn't realize that rowing attracted a lot of like-minded people until I got out on the water. It's a lot of people who care about the environment, and rowing is a pretty technical sport, and it attracts a lot of nerds. That means I'm working with a lot of people who I might actually be able to make a deal through my hobby, because the company that I work for offers services that their company might need. So, in addition to, just getting to know people and talking to everyone, being involved in campus, I highly suggest that you consider your hobby a way of networking, even though it doesn't seem like it at first. And then attending conferences and events, and then just talking to everybody. I don't have a paper business card. As soon as I meet somebody, I am trying to connect with them on LinkedIn right away, because it'll keep you in more of a constant contact. Because when someone hands you paper, unless you act on it, it's pretty rare that you see that person again. So trying to keep those relationships again long term, and then adding them on LinkedIn, so keeping it dynamic. Because again, they're going to be like-minded people, and just staying relevant is going to help. Because say they know of a job that's available, they post it, they want to work with you, then you'll see it, as opposed to just a piece of paper in a drawer. So yeah, but those are just networking best practices. So cover letter best practices. Sorry, my slides don't look great. I got a little sick on Saturday. I'm still recovering. So yes.
There's a question about like conferences. Do you have like any website where they post conferences? Because I hear so much that you should go to conferences, but then you also have to pay for them. And like I'm international, so I don't really know where to find them. I just went to, it was not a job interview, but I talked to a person on, it was actually Monday, and he was like, yeah, there's like this conference on, was it like today or tomorrow in Gainesville, like some green woman fair. And I was like, this is pretty cool. And I didn't even know about it. So I'm like, how do you know like how we can find conferences?
Yeah. I keep a list. I just have a list with the name of the conference and the hyperlink to it, because usually the hyperlink will just update to the next year's conference with the location, and then I also write the date of when the conference usually happens. And then I just go through the list throughout the year, and I keep track of it that way. I don't have any specific software that I use for conference tracking, but so it's pretty manual, right? To create the list and have the links and have the dates. But if you open it at least once a month and go through and, you know, see if you can get the early bird registration, or even you can even apply to speak at some of the conferences, and sometimes they'll waive your fee for the day to go and speak that day. So, you know, if you're working on research in some of your classes, you know, that would always be something that you could go and present at a conference if you wanted to get in that way as well. Yeah. I know, kind of a long-winded answer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also on LinkedIn, so like the people who like the name of the conference is often like a page that you can follow, and then since that's active, it'll like let you know when to register and like what city it's going to be in. So that's another way to follow different conferences throughout the year. And just putting it out there, then people will tell you. They get excited when people want to show up. Yeah.
Okay.
So cover letter, best practices, do your research, know what the company does, and know what their mission, vision, and values are. I would say it's not a good idea to go to an interview and not really know what the company does in detail. So it's kind of interesting when that does happen. But just making sure that you do research before you show up to an interview or before you write your cover letter, because it's going to be really important to know what the company values, because you are going to want to write to those values and how you can provide a benefit and help them achieve those goals that they have. So, and then how you solve their challenge. What specific skills do you have? And then telling a story about how you solved the challenge or problem in the past. So the cover letter is going to be kind of a teaser for the interview. You're going to want to put stuff in your cover letter that you want them to ask you about during an interview. So you don't have to write the whole entire story. You can just write that it happened, and then you find a way to bring it up and tell the whole story in person. And then, do your values align with the company? Do they actually care about sustainability? Is sustainability really a priority to the company? I previously worked for a company that said they cared about sustainability, but then also got in trouble for shoehorning sustainability in every proposal. But if you care about sustainability, then you would know that it belongs in every proposal. If you're building any kind of infrastructure in this country or really anywhere in the world, sustainability should be thought about first. So it's a really interesting conversation to have with someone who is claiming that sustainability was a priority of theirs. So I mean, if, like I was saying earlier, everybody in this room who is here is really driven by passion. So it is going to be important to find a job that will complement that passion and reward you for that passion rather than punish you for that passion. All right, next slide. Just a couple resume best practices. So trying to figure out ways to use colors, columns, tables to show any information or even any icons. You can find them for free through PowerPoint. I even Google the company's RGBs and their font styles. So that's another way that you can kind of look like you're already part of the team, that you already work for that company. And they can kind of just see you as part of the team a little bit more when you do that. And then parts of a resume, I think that especially as we enter our careers, having the executive summary or an objective is really important, because that's your opportunity to tell a future employer what you are looking to do and why you want to do it. So it should be a little personal, so they can kind of get to know you a little bit and what motivates you. And then also in your experience, skills, education, certificates, awards. I think that it goes a lot smoother in that order. Some people do say to put education first. I feel like people are going to want to know where you worked first, personally, more so than where you went to school first. So I think the biggest, baddest, best skill that you have should be that very first thing as an experience bullet rather than where you went to school. And then nothing from high school unless it's something incredibly unique. So something incredibly unique would be like an Eagle Scout. If you got that in high school, that's something that can go on the resume for a while. But every once in a while I do see like an honor society. Nobody really cares about that from high school, especially once you get a master's degree. All right, so next slide.
You that you're just about to answer.
Yeah.
It was about having a headshot on a resume.
My headshot. Okay. That is really, it's going to remain a popular question, I feel like, for a long time. So yes, I am pro headshot for 2 reasons. If someone does have a bias against you, like, you're gonna wanna know before you even get to the interview. You don't wanna show up to an interview and someone's gonna surprise you with some ugly feelings about how you look. So you wanna get that out of the way. And secondly, they're gonna go to your LinkedIn anyway. They're already gonna see your headshot anyway. I think the headshot's a really great way to add some color to a resume. I think it's also a really great way to like start forcing in a template and some shape to the resume so that it's not just a wall of text. Especially in the way people get information today is a lot of social media. So in some ways you do want your resume not to look cartoony, but certainly have some color and images to it, because that is how people are getting information now. People are getting information in short bursts of sentences. They're gonna skim. They're gonna spend about 30 seconds to a minute on your resume. So so like what I did here, I would say probably don't do that, right? Someone said build out a skills-based resume. That's really what people want to see. So I have my cover letter, which is just a big block of text, nothing terribly exciting. I have the first page of my resume where I put my education, affiliations, my experience, my headshot with my contact information. It's a little better than if it were just this, but then here's all my skills, just in case anybody was particularly looking for a skills-based resume versus a traditional resume. So I tried to answer the mail there, knowing that people wanted something different, and tried to give it to them. But the issue is when they're only spending 30 seconds to a minute on your cover letter and your resume, either individually or together, I give them way too much to look at. So the thought between one-page cover letter and one-page resume is you want to be in control of every single line on that page, so that when you get to the interview, that selection committee is pumped full of power statements about you and the skills that you have and the things that you can do and where you learned those skills. So next slide. So then now this is my cover letter. So this is 2 different firms I recently applied to, and so I put my headshot on my cover letter to create more space on my actual resume page. I put kind of just like a positive statement about why I wanted the job, and then again my years of experience, affiliations, and education, and then just a pretty short cover letter that someone could read very quickly. It's very pointed. That one would take a little bit longer to read, but also the fonts that I've used are different from each other because those are each of their corporate fonts. So one font really just does look prettier and elegant, and the other font just does look blocky and just there. But that also is one of the benefits of using the corporate font, because then they know it's theirs and they don't just think you don't know how to pick font. They're just used to seeing it look like that. So that's an easy benefit to have one less decision to make. And then figuring out a way to get your signature on your cover letter. So for me, I just used my tablet. I wrote my name, emailed it to myself. Boom. Now it's a signature on my cover letter. It is a really nice touch to have your own signature on your cover letter. And then I do suggest finding a pen that's like a nice blue color. I've also seen green. I also really like green. But that is another sneaky way to help your cover letter be a little more personalized and have some color on it. So, so yeah, that's what I've decided to do with my cover letter. And then you can go to the next slide. And so here's an example of my resume. So what I've done differently from what would kind of be the traditional resume is that I have all of my experience down here in a table. So it's the company that I work for, my role, the location, and the amount of time. And then again, I use their corporate RGBs. And then I made it more of a skills-based resume at the top. So that instead of writing the same skills over and over again, I'm able to save space by just categorizing what those skills are. And then also, you know, those are just icons from PowerPoint that I pulled over. So then this way I'm able to keep everything for my resume on one page, able to give it some color, and it's incredibly easy to skim. And so I know that it is tricky to do a resume when most of your experience is coming from class. I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing, but with the classes and the skills that you're getting from the class. So like kind of maybe like the name of the class or the project, and then what those skills are. So if you used Excel for greenhouse gas inventory or any kind of program for any class, I would highly encourage writing it in here, because people know that you're students. People know that you don't have a ton of experience in the corporate world or the private world or, you know, the public sector. Like, they know that you're coming out of college. So I would say rely heavily on what you're actually learning in the classes and what you want the selection committee who's looking at your resume, like what you want them to know about you. And the best thing, and the only way they're going to know that is if it's written on the paper. All right. So that's it. Then I am able to take some questions if anybody has any. Okay.
Have you ever gotten any pushback from a place that you've applied to that your resume is not kind of the standard boring layout, or do you find that it's well received?
No, so I got to the interview, and I think we all need to be honest with ourselves when we get to interviews and you're meeting with someone and, you know, maybe you really want the job because it's close to your house or you like the company or there's good benefits. But at the end of the day, you have to really, really like what you're doing, and you have to really, really like who you're going to work for. And, you know, I'm in this marketing networking group, and I applied for a job. I wanted to be an energy manager for energy proposals for this really big firm for Kiewit. That's what that resume is for. And I got the call back, I got the interview, and they wanted me to work on nuclear proposals. And I made a face. Yep, I made a face, and they were like, "Oh, you don't want to do that, do you?" I was like, "Oh, no, I don't really want to work on nuclear proposals." So everything was going great in the interview until that moment, and then it was just like downhill, ended early, like no communication for a long time. But, or else what? Or I would lie to her and I would get the job and I'd find myself working on nuclear proposals, like very unhappily. So I mean, I think it is really, you know, interviews, it's so hard as a student when you need the job, right? And you don't feel like you can be picky, but interviews really are a chance to have that opportunity to ask what you will be doing, what kind of skills you can learn. I ended up in marketing because of a poorly written job advertisement, like I thought I was going to be able to make recommendations on energy conservation measures because of the way this job ad was written. Like I thought I was going to be doing ASHRAE level 1, like energy audit kind of work, but instead I was writing business proposals for the services, not actually doing the services. So I was like, okay, like I like winning this work, like I like working on proposals, like I'll do this. And I ended up really liking it, but did I know I was getting into doing what I was doing at the interview? Like, no, and I didn't ask a single question about what I'd be doing.
The questions that I like to ask during interviews is like, can you tell me what day to day looks like and what projects I'll be working on?
Yeah.
Because I've run into the same thing.
Please ask that question. Please ask that question because I really didn't know I was going to be using InDesign and creating templates and winning work. Like I really thought I was going to be doing more of the like consulting work. So, and then there's that. And then also, if you have a feeling about whoever's interviewing you that there's a red flag that maybe you don't want to work for them, follow that feeling, because there's nothing worse than having a boss who you feel doesn't understand you or doesn't communicate with you well or treats you unfairly. That's not a good first job. So now that I'm in marketing and proposals, there's only so many paths that I can take once I'm in, and the longer I do it, kind of like the more it locks me into that career. So I feel really lucky that I like it, but there are a lot of people who hate it and they can't get out. So make sure, so if you were in that interview and you're starting to feel like, oh, this isn't for me, like, don't keep going, because sometimes that could get in your way. Like we wanted to hire someone to help with the greenhouse gas inventory, but because he was working part-time for a solar company, he wasn't able to take the job, but greenhouse gas inventory is what he wanted to do. So it was kind of like taking the wrong opportunity kept him from getting the right opportunity. So that's always something that you want to keep in mind when you're starting to work somewhere too, is you want to make sure that what you're doing is true to what you want to do, or else you'll kind of get locked in somewhere, and once you're in, it's hard to get out sometimes. Yeah. Cool. Anybody have any other questions?
What do you think about putting references in your resume, like people that employer can contact?
Yeah. So can you go forward? I just wrote it down here that references and writing samples can be provided upon request. I don't just include them anymore, unless I'm applying online somewhere that wants me to put them in. Then I'll put them in, but otherwise I don't just send off my references. And some people actually really like that, like the people who your references are sometimes really like that. They don't just like having their information out there. So that's kind of one of the reasons why to. Yeah, I know it used to be pretty standard to include it, but I don't anymore.
Question. Recently, I sent my resume to someone like to give me tips on how to improve it, and I had a very simple template, and they were like, "Oh, don't use template because companies sometimes pass through a software and they don't even consider templates." And for me, that doesn't make any sense because that doesn't say anything on the quality of my resume, the fact that I use it as a template. But do you see that happening? If I'm applying online? Would that be
I've heard of it happening, but not. And I've also seen it for myself too, right? Like, especially since I have things kind of set up with like my education on my cover letter, right? Like, AI is gonna have a really fun time figuring that one out. And then I just had to type things in manually. But I haven't been kept from applying for a job because of it. I know someone earlier said they were, so I don't want to say it's not happening. I'm just saying I haven't experienced that. But I know another thing is ChatGPT. They're starting to figure out an algorithm for the cadence of ChatGPT, and they're starting to figure out how much of people's writing is ChatGPT. So I think sometimes it's a great place to get an outline from, but I would say don't lean on it too hard because softwares are already starting to figure it out and tag it as ChatGPT content. I know with working on search engine optimization items for our website, like we can't use ChatGPT at all because Google knows, and it won't give you any search engine optimization credit. Like it kind of just glosses over it like it's nothing. So that's going to be something that you'll also want to think about as far as what computer systems are and aren't picking up. I think ultimately it might make sense to have a resume that doesn't have a lot of formatting that's pretty straightforward for those systems. But then I think it's also worthwhile to have a prettier resume because people do want to see that you know how to place content. I know it sounds silly, but that's just how people are getting their information. That's how people are used to seeing information now. So, and then this idea, it really just came from Google. I'm not a super duper graphic designer. I just go to Google Images and type in resume, and there's just a bunch of different ideas that come up, and I take the one that I like the most and just try and create it. I mean, it's just two rectangles in my image, but it does make the page look so much better. Okay. Does anybody else have another question?
Yes, I have a question regarding networking. After, what is your advice after meet somebody? I mean, you can maybe on LinkedIn or just send any email, but in order that you not be like bordering these people because you need to demonstrate that you are interested and like this person helped you to find any position, any internship. What do you recommend to do after? I don't know how many email, how to follow this person.
Yeah, so if you're going to follow someone on LinkedIn that you don't know very well, I would suggest writing a note. But the note doesn't have to be rocket science. The note can really just be how like oh, we met at this event, like great meeting you in person, let's stay connected. It could if you met them at an event, or like say they wrote a paper that you read. If you write, hey, I read that paper that you just published, I thought it was really great, let's stay connected. Someone's going to be so excited that you read something that they wrote. Like they will be your friend forever. They'll be like, wow, she read the thing that I wrote. Like that makes me feel great. Like, you know what I mean? Like you just made a friend for life by saying that you enjoyed something like that. So yeah, it can just be something really simple. I wouldn't just, unless you actually met the person and have rapport, I wouldn't just connect without a note, because then they're not going to know why you were looking at them. And there's a lot of bots out there, so a lot of people aren't connecting without any reason why. Like oh, you're going to be my professor next fall. Like I'm going to follow you. Like just for some context, I think people really appreciate that. Was that your question?
Yes. It was good what you mentioned about just maybe compliment something that the person is doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's good starting to improve the connection with this person.
Yeah, and I've also heard of people doing like networking. It's called the networking interview. So it's where the student has a couple questions that they ask the professional. So it's a little Yeah, so it's a little like, you know, backwards, right? Because then you are asking them all of the questions that, and then that'll kind of give you an idea of like how to get into that career, who they need to know, or you know, even making a new friend, and then, you know, next time you can go to coffee and they can look at your resume and you can get some one-on-one time. So there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize this network that you're building.
I'd like to ask about your feelings about the 2024 network relationship with the old statement, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Because in my 62 years of living and getting jobs, I have not gotten a single job of consequence that wasn't through the network. Every job that I've gotten that was meaningful to me, I knew somebody, I'd established some relationship with somebody who was connected with whatever the employment group was, and that's how I got the job. And so putting the resume in was a formality. It was never the first, the door opener was not the resume in all of the good jobs I've had. Does that resonate with you?
The door opener for me was definitely having a master's degree. I did a debrief. Even though I got the job, I did the debrief anyway. I wanted to know what was right. I was like, what about my resume made you want to call me up for an interview? And usually the first thing is the master's degree. They're like, well, you have a master's degree. A lot of people who applied for this job don't have a master's degree.
So that's still the opener.
Another person said my involvement with student government. Someone wanted to know more about me and my what I was doing with student government and getting projects done on campus. And then another person, you know, the second job that I got, just having 1 year of experience like made me look awesome, because nobody ever applied for the job who already had experience before. So with like writing a proposal, it's a pretty unique skill set. So no, I didn't know anybody, but proposal writing is a super unique skill set. Like 86% of people who get into it get out of it within the first 2 years because the burnout rate is so high. So, yeah, I didn't necessarily know somebody, but definitely having the master's degree and a unique skill set gets me in the door. And then at my last job, the interview, they asked, you know, they were like, why this job? Why would you want to come work here? I was like, well, nobody's building anything if it is like that's unsustainable. Like everything that's being built is sustainable, and I know how to write to sustainability. Mm-hmm. And they were like, yep, okay, hired. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it is a meaningful skill set, and if you do just say like, hey, this is my skill, like this is the skill, this is why you hire me, then people do want to hire someone who speaks like that about sustainability, because that's what they're looking for.
Let me corroborate with you 2 other pieces of advice that I was given that turned out to be really valuable. First was, I was told, when you approach a firm or a company, don't ask them for the job because you want to benefit you, ask because you want to benefit them. You ask, how can I add value with my skill set, with my interests? How can I add value to your company or your enterprise? Because you're emphasizing that you're going to benefit them, and of course, whatever benefits they give back in terms of salary or healthcare, all that, that is their package. But you don't go saying, I need this job or I want this job. You come saying, I have things to offer. How can I add value to your company?
Yeah, and so that's kind of too, I say about cover letters, like making sure you're writing about the company in the cover letter, because if you're only talking about yourself in the cover letter, you're not talking about how your skill set benefits the company. You're not talking about how you solve their challenge, how you being in the room makes one of their problems go away. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I tell people all the time, like, if you talk about yourself too much in that cover letter, it's like being on a boring first date where, like, the other person's only talking about themselves the whole time. Because that's exactly what you're doing. And if you started out like, I'm so honored to be able to like apply for this job. Like that is such a weird opening. My business wants to do that all the time. I have to edit it out every single time. I'm like, no client wants to hear our ego be like the very first thing that they read. like, oh, thank you for letting us apply for this. Like, you're so amazing. I'm so amazing. Like, you kind of want to avoid, cover letter energy like that, and you want to make sure that if you go to and do your research on the company, figure out what that challenge is, figure out how your skill set solves that challenge for them. That's what they want to know.
The other thing I wanted to corroborate with you is in relation to your saying about having the experience before even going to the job. And this is back when I was trying to be a professional musician and went to music school, and best instructors at the music school said, get out there and play. It doesn't matter if you're on the street and you're not making a penny or you're making $1,000 for a night. What you do is play, and people will recognize that that's who you are. For sustainability, it's the same thing. I think, right? You got to get out there and be the sustainability, whether you're earning a penny for it or not. That's what you do, and it comes across as, like you said, your background was you were the person who did public transportation and rode a bike, was committed to it. I mean, when you the thing you're studying, and you're going to do it regardless of whether they pay you. And this has happened to great success with me with big projects. They've paid me when I've told them that I would do it whether they paid me or not. Yeah. And they end up paying you more. You'd think that they would say, well, if you're willing to do it for free, then why should we pay you? But it's not what you're saying to them. You're not saying if I work for you, you don't have to pay me. You're saying I'm sustainability. That's what I do. And I'm going to go ahead and do these sustainable things, and I can add value to you because this is who I am, right? You're the thing that they're looking for. You have to establish your brand, essentially, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, and then another thing we were talking about upstairs is creating a so what statement, and that helps a lot with when you're writing your executive summary, because it should be a little bit personal, not just like I care about energy efficiency to save money off utility bills in buildings, like that. That doesn't move anybody. That doesn't make anybody think anything about me. But when you ask yourself, when you say a statement like that, and then you say "so what" 3 times, then the last statement that you get to ends up being something really, really special and unique. And I think that's a really great way to go about writing your executive summary. That'll go at the top of your resume.
Can you give more examples of a so what domain? You talked energy. One, are there other so what's that you can say how to inject personality into?
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna pick on you because he doesn't like to do that. Okay. So why do you work at the Patel College?
Because I can put into practice the dreams that I felt in my years will make for a better future for my children and the children of others, working with young people, undergrads and graduate students who are going to replicate and amplify what seems to me to be life-saving ideas and technologies.
Okay. Well, why is that important to you?
Because I see the writing on the wall, and I think that our future generations are not going to have an easy time if we don't get this message amplified and spread immediately. So I feel this is an activist role.
All right. Okay, well, why is that important to you?
Because I have children and I meet with families that are looking at the future, and there's that feeling you get as a parent that this could all go very wrong very quickly if we don't get sustainability out. It's not a job. I mean, why is it important to me? Because I know that I can't protect my children and the children of those I love if we as a society don't make massive changes.
And I really like the difference between the third why is that important to you versus the first why is that important to you. Like the first why was that important to you, like that had a lot of buzzwords. Mm-hmm. The last one, I found out that you're a parent. I found you deeply care about the world around you and that you think this is massively important. And so when you take yourself through that journey, it is incredibly annoying to be asked the same question 3 times, but really getting to that third answer does create a unique and beautiful personal statement that does wow people.
What about the admonition that people are supposed to be objective in our field and that being subjective like this weakens the scientific business focus.
Yeah. I mean, if that's who you want to work for, then you're gonna have to tailor your resume to be that message, right? I'm not gonna stand here and tell someone they should or shouldn't do something. What I am gonna say is, if that's what you want to do, like, you know, think about your resume. Make sure that it's written that way. Like, you know, be dispassionate, be data focused, and that's the bottom line. And when you create your resume, it's got to read that way though too.
Would you also, I'm sorry to dominate, but I'm hoping to
Yeah.
get things focused.
I love
and get
this.
things I learned. If you have to change who you are in order to get the job, then it's not the job for you. And
Right.
that you might consider that any rejection, if you're very honest in your resume and honest in your approach, is a good breakup. That you should not continue courting, like you said earlier, like on a date. You shouldn't continue courting somebody that you know you're not gonna marry, because you might get in a job situation where you'll be committed and then realize that you've been wasting years of your life. Right?
Yeah.
Stay out there, stay dating until you find the match for you.
Isn't a cover letter like praising your high? Like, I don't know, like when people tell me to write a cover letter, I'm like, I don't know, when I read cover letters, or also like, I don't know, when I applied to college and I read like the motivation letter from friends, I was like, this is like not actually you, but they're like, yeah, but this is how you're supposed to write it. And then they got like accepted to like good colleges, like really, really got here in the US. And I'm like, okay, so I kind of have to write a better version of myself to get the better job.
The better version of yourself isn't dishonest. The better version of yourself could be aspirational.
The better version of yourself is doing what the better version of yourself is trying to do. Right?
Yeah.
When I say be honest, I don't mean like expose all of your flaws, just like you do get dressed, like you say, the appearance in your resume, the appearance that you have, they're all the outward manifestation of who you like to project yourself to being. That's not dishonest. Dishonesty would be saying that you want a job you really don't want and like doing the nuclear thing. It ain't you. Don't do it.
Yeah, okay, no, that makes sense.
But yeah, I mean, I would say the people who believe in themselves do well. So I would say you believe in yourself and just show up every day and want to do a good job. Right now I have a really difficult client, and I just kind of had to be like, I don't care about her. Like, I care about the job that I'm doing on this data, right? And so that's kind of how we have to think about it, right? To get through, to be our best selves, like to offer that best, you know, your best ability to do something. So, you know, it's weird because, you know, it's teetering on imposter syndrome. Have you read about imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
Yeah, men don't get that. You just gotta be like,
Oh, yes, we do. We do.
I'm just not gonna get that either then, right? You just gotta be it.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I was saying in the class before we came over, a little bit of talking about ChatGPT and AI and the right way to use it as opposed to the wrong. I thought that was really good to hear you resonate with that. And the other thing I was saying is that since so many of our students come from various countries, they understand well that if the job market doesn't seem to be manifesting for them here, there's a massive planet encouraging all over. So they should not feel unconfident. It's hard, I think, if you're tied to a specific location, you might find it a little more intimidating. But if you're open to, you know, before you have a family and settle down and all that, there's so much to be done on this planet. You shouldn't be discouraged because one job market doesn't seem to be open to who you are or what you're doing.
And it's so much better now than it was 10 years ago. Like, it's really hard not to be like jealous. you know? Yeah. Yeah, does anybody have any more questions?
There's a lot of like jobs that requires experience or more. And I sometimes apply for jobs that require a lot of experience. Is that true? Like, do they actually require? Do I have a chance? The things I've been studying most of the time, and I haven't really had a lot of experiences.
Yeah, I think that goes back to like figuring out a way to talk about the classes that you're taking and the projects that you're doing and making that known on your resume. So if it's something like knowing the Clean Water Act really well, it's like, you know, and you want your experience in the Clean Water Act, but you've been writing about it for the past year, like figuring out a way to put that in your resume and be like, yep, like I have very thoroughly read the entire Clean Water Act, you know, and have like, you know, just describe whatever your projects are. Like if you piece together any tertiary data, or you know, say you know presented something to SwiftMud, you know whatever the outcome or deliverable was, that always looks good too. Yeah, really lean in on the class experience because the people who are getting interviews, like their resumes look awesome, but you know we get them into an interview and I'm just like, how much of that resume was ChatGPT? Like this human being did not write this resume. So it's both, right? So whatever you put on your resume, you need to be ready to talk about in an interview so that you can solidify that you have the information, you just haven't been paid to do anything with it yet. Yeah.
Can you help give them some guidance on how to use their ACE experience to their best advantage? I mean, I know when I was in grad school, my internship at the LA Zoo turned into an actual job for 4 more years, paid, sending me around the world. And it's all because I put on my resume that I'd been using GIS to do some analysis on my own. And then I used it at the zoo as an intern, and then they gave me a job. So do you recommend internships or research projects? And if so, how do you parlay them into the job market?
I would say try and go to lunches and coffee with professional people and have them look at your resume. I didn't know I was interested in buildings until someone was looking at my resume, and he looks at my resume, he's like, he's like, well, I can definitely tell you're interested in buildings. And I'm sitting there like, what? I like buildings? Like, what? He's like, yeah, it's buildings all over your resume. He's like, you know, you're doing the right thing, kid. And like, you know, kind of hands me this paper back. And it was like the least engaging, like, resume review I've ever had, but also the most enlightening, because up until that moment, like, I didn't know that I cared about buildings so much until this guy told me. So, right? Because like sometimes we don't know what's right in front of our faces, and it does take somebody else. So I know that's not the direct answer, but I would say get your resume reviewed by a lot of people, as many people as you can, because that also helps build your network. So then when they are looking for someone, they have your resume, like, right? You kind of tricked them, like you sent them your resume. So meeting as many people as you can and getting your resume in front of as many people as you can. And then what was the second?
What about for their ACE, as they plan for their ACE internship, research project, if they choose one or the other, what's the best ways to parlay that into the workforce?
So I would say if you're going to do research, I mean, that whatever you want to be doing research in when you're done. So someone earlier was saying they want to go be an environmental scientist, and I didn't get a chance to ask, like, well, what kind of science? Like water, soil, air, like what area? So whatever you think you want to do, try and do research like in that area so that you can say that you have those years of experience with this like specific regulation that you need to be familiar with. And then as far as the ACE goes, like I had no idea what a request for proposal process was when I started my ACE. and started doing my internship with the City of Largo Public Works Department. And one of the projects they were doing was having an energy service company come in, and they responded to an RFP. They gave us their proposal. They came in, they did the interview. I got to watch the whole process, and then the selection committee voted on a company to award that work for. And at the time, I didn't think anything of it, but now that's what I do. So it's kind of funny how, one second I didn't know what an ESCO was, and the next I'm working for a firm where that's our bread and butter is an ESCO project. So sometimes there are those happy accident moments, as long as you put yourself on the path to doing what you that you want to do. I ended up applying for public works because I care about buildings. They care about buildings. We both care about buildings. And so that put me kind of right place, right time, right skill set that helped me land my first job. Is they were like, oh, you actually know what an ESCO is? You've actually seen a proposal by our competitors? You know what goes into this? I was like, yeah, I actually do. They're like, all right, see you Monday. So as long as you were putting yourself in the right place, you'll have those happy accidents. You'll get that right skill.
How do you spell ESCO? I don't know what one is.
Yeah, ESCO. So it's an energy service contractor. And it goes.
Energy service company.
Yeah.
Now I know what it is.
Yeah. So. But if you do the wrong thing, but like you're saying, but if you take the wrong thing and you know it in your heart, then you're not really putting yourself on a path where you can kind of discover what those things are. So it is really important to pick kind of good managers and know what you're doing, know what skills you'll be learning before signing a contract. All right, well, if there's no more questions, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I really appreciate it. And for the folks online, really appreciate it. And if you ever have any questions, please feel free to email me. Always happy to help fellow students land that first job.
Thanks for meeting with Parul today.
Yeah.
He was happy. Yeah. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.